Alyssa Orange is with us too here. Alyssa, this just came out. This is such a Next Monday is such an incredibly important day in the history of American sports and college sports, certainly. And the step I just brought up, that's the next step, is some kind of collective bargaining. It has to happen.
Yeah, it's we've been covering this for a long time and following it for a long time, and there's a lot that goes into everything that's going on, and sometimes it can get confusing from revenue sharing and what that exactly means, and what schools are then going to do with the money that they have and where it's going to go in specific sports and whatnot. But then you also have these conversations where, do these athletes become employees of the university? And do you then, do they create a players union? If they do that, then they have to be employees, and they're subjecting themselves to other types of contracts and other laws and things like that, that I don't know if that necessarily helps their case as an athlete or not, because now you're an employee and there are certain stipulations that come with that. And what would that look like for college athletes? Does that impact the transfer portal? How does that work, obviously, with taxes and, getting jobs? It's so interesting, but there's been a lot of talk about what would happen and that being the next step. And so I'm really curious to see if the revenue sharing and when that happens, how the athletes are going to respond. And there's a lot of good that can come from them unionizing, but obviously that's going to take some of their leverage away as well. And it'll be really interesting to see how all of that plays out.
I don't know if this is true, so I shouldn't bring it up, but I saw somewhere where it said Hunter Dickinson got another year of eligibility. That's April Fool's, right? There's no way that he could get another year. But Alyssa, something that is true, Big Z just got into the portal. Any other players? Are you surprised that Big Z's in the portal? Who else do you think could follow suit?
Yeah, I said I was, surprised slightly. But I can also see where he might feel like, and then after having conversations with Coach Calipari and the other coaches, that he might be better fit somewhere else. And this is a guy that followed Cal from Kentucky to Arkansas, and had really good stretches and then had really bad stretches. And it was up and down and up and down. And maybe he just wants to see if there is a way to tap into more of his potential elsewhere. Maybe he wants to go play with his brother. I mean, you really kind of don't know the exact reasons behind it, but I can understand it. Maybe this is the staff wants to kind of maybe bring in more physical big men, and they don't know what kind of role they can promise him in the future. And now he's ready to kind of look elsewhere to see where what school he can play a bigger piece in. So I am slightly surprised, only because of the fact that, he did follow Cal from Kentucky, and we were seeing improvement out of him. But also, maybe he can have better success elsewhere. And so that's kind of what the transfer portal does. It'll take some shocking news like that and be like, oh, wow, okay, not necessarily saw that one coming, but it makes sense when you sit down and you think about it. Other guys, it'll be interesting to see what happens with some of the younger guys, right? Like, does Trevin, I say younger, Trevin's not younger anymore, but does Trevin Brazil, come back?
Yeah, Boogie and Richmond and Wagner. Like, what about those? Yeah, those are real important pieces.
Wagner can come back. Do Thiero, Carter Knox. These guys. It's just such a weird place to be, because you saw them have such success towards the end of the season and start to really click as a team. And now it's just like, is this team even going to look anywhere close to what it looks like this year, next year? And that requires pieces sticking around. And, it's hard to envision what the future looks like, because we just don't know what it's going to look like and who's going to stay and who's going to leave and who's going to enter the draft and then decide to pull their name out. And you would love for these guys to stay together, because that's a really good starting point to build from. But we also saw this team completely come together from scratch and still have success. So that's just how college athletics are right now. You really can't anticipate seeing a lot of these guys come back another year.
There's a potential 5 freshman incoming class. You already have 4 that are signed to the program, and they certainly want Nate Ament. Who wouldn't? And Cal had said, I'm not doing it the way I used to do it before. I think the way we think about him doing it before was that it was all freshmen, every single team, and I don't think that was always the
and
case.
One and done, I think, too, a little bit.
Well, that's part of it as well. And so the idea is you're still building a program through freshmen. They're not all going to be one and done. Maybe there's one of those guys, maybe 2 if Knox, because he's going up the draft boards a little bit. But this isn't a program that's going to build just through the transfer portal. And I don't think anybody would have thought that. But the way that it comes off right now is that, and you're right, Alyssa, like the next 6 weeks, there's going to be a lot of jumping into the portal, maybe coming out of the portal, going into the portal and saying you're checking to see what your draft stock is, or guys that want to stay at Arkansas, check and see your draft stock. It's going to be 6 weeks or so before you really know, or even longer than that, what this roster will look like. But Cal's going to be Cal. He's still going to have, it looks like here, large, incoming, incredibly talented freshman classes, but they'll top it off with it looks like they want to top it off with right now are big men who have some experience.
Yeah, and I think when you go back and look what Cal has always done, especially at Kentucky and then coming here, and like you mentioned, bringing in freshmen who are talented, you're bringing in guys who can play right now. That's how it was with Boogie Flan, and Carter Knox and Billy Richmond came on as the season progressed, but they were getting in the lineup. They were getting in to the rotation early. These are freshmen who can play and be competitive in this league right now. He's not bringing in freshmen who he feels like he might have to develop for a couple of years, because you don't even know if you're going to have them for a couple of years. And so that's what you're looking at. Can you play for me right now? And if you can play for me right now, I don't care if you're an incoming freshman, or I don't care if I have to go get you from the portal, but I need guys who can contribute and can contribute in a big way for this season. And you can't build rosters for the future anymore, because you just don't know what they're going to look like. And so, yeah, you bring in all these really young, talented guys who are going to play significantly for you, and you balance them out with some big men and experience who have a little bit more physicality that you can bring in out of the transfer portal. But that's what you're looking at now. You're looking at what can you do for me this season, and then you get through that season and you reevaluate every single year. It's not like this guy's got potential, I really like him, but it might take him 2 or 3 years to get to where we think he's going to be, because you don't know if you're going to have him for 2 or 3 years.
Well, Alyssa, something that we do know that's going to happen this weekend, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you next Tuesday as well. Give me a grade on this NCAA March Madness tournament. All 4 seeds made the Final Four, and then when we talk to you Tuesday, who's cutting down the nets Monday night? I obviously, you guys know me, don't love that Florida is in the Final Four, but I can get over it. I had Tennessee, like I told you guys, winning it all. So they got beat, and that's okay. Golly, I like Houston. So I'm there we go.
Houston's cutting down nets.
40-year anniversary, Phi Slamma Jamma. Let's go.
Yep. So I'm going Houston. So rewind the tape on Tuesday, and we'll see if I'm right. But I think this really speaks to, with all the number 1 seeds making it to the Final Four, it just speaks to where we are in college athletics, and specifically college basketball, where you also look at these teams, and they're teams that had a lot of money to go spend in the offseason and bring in talent. And that is why NIL is important. It's why this revenue sharing thing is going to be huge for college athletics. Because right now, as we're seeing, whoever has the most money, who can go get some players, who's got the bank account to do so, those teams are in the Final Four right now.
So to me, it feels almost like men's basketball is going to go potentially where women's basketball has been for a long time. You can stockpile talent. in women's basketball in ways that men's basketball used to do. But because of the portal, it's seeing older, better players that now want a better place to play, a better league to play in and go showcase their stuff. They go play in the SEC and some of the other bigger leagues as well. You know, the whole idea of chalky tournaments and top seeds going to the Final Four and truly dominant program. Women's basketball has been doing that for decades. That's been a really chalky sport, and it continues to be that way. Yeah. Men's basketball has just arrived there.
Yeah, I think so. And there's such a discrepancy between the haves and have-nots in women's basketball than there was in men's basketball. And now we're seeing, like you said, men's basketball is kind of at that point too because there's money involved. But for the women's side of things, for them it was all about playing for a brand, right? And you had your brands, your Tennessees, your UConns, your South Carolinas. The talent was going to play for that brand and those coaches. And now those brands and those programs have the NIL budget because of the history that they have in the sport to go and continue to get those good players, right? So it almost made it worse for women's basketball. But that's just how it is, and then why it's so important for people to understand that when you're a program like Arkansas, it is going to take a lot to catch up. And I don't think you're going to catch up fully, but you got to kind of close that gap because the gap is so much bigger in women's basketball than it is on the men's side. And it is pretty evident if you've been following the sport for a while.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here.